Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Blue Ribbon Lounge podcast.
Welcome back to the Blue Ribbon Lounge podcast.
Pew, pew, pew.
Pew, pew.
The podcast where you come to find out strange stuff.
Yes, get your information about whatever topic we're topicing.
Yeah, all the stuff you didn't know you wanted to know about. That's what we are.
Yes.
And sometimes we have guests, like today.
We have a guest today?
Yes, we have a guest today, Miss Krisha Saldivar.
Woohoo!
Hey, thanks for coming down to the lounge. You got your Blue Ribbon Lounge merch already. You're ready to go.
I'm ready to go. I'm loaded with factual tidbits to share about interesting things in the Quad Cities.
The tittiest of bits.
The tittiest of bits, correct.
We brought Krisha onto the pod because we kind of had this crazy idea of how to sell a haunted house.
Ooh.
I think there's a TV show about this called Sir Real Estate.
Is that really a thing?
I think so. I think it's on like Discovery Plus or something like that. I don't have that, so I didn't watch
it's
it.
It's a gentrified version, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's very promoted.
It's very, very scripted,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
So why don't you tell the people out there listening in La La Land a little bit about how long you've been doing realty, I don't know, stuff like that.
Okay, so again, I'm Krisha Saldivar. You can find me on Facebook at Sold by Saldivar.
Also, that's a good
You like
name.
that?
Yeah,
I
it's catchy.
know. Also, I have a website, which is krishasaldivar.rulehomes.com. I am affiliated with the Rule and Rule Brokerage, which has been in business since 1892. I get to work in the best real estate office in the Quad Cities, which is our Middle Road location.
Ooh, that's the mortuary location.
It is. And do I have a little nugget about that information for you?
Nice.
Yes. So I've been in business for the last 9 years, primarily on the Iowa side. I recently acquired my Illinois license.
Which is funny because you live in Florida.
Well, you know, home is where your heart is and where you get your paycheck from.
Yeah.
So I think that counts. But I have been doing real estate for 9 years, and I have had a wonderful experience with both buyer and seller clients, and I've been able to tour some quote-unquote haunted houses.
Oh, I'm super excited. I didn't know you had these experiences. You had just talked to me about the podcast, and I was like, ding, let's do this. Because at the very least, you know about how to sell houses.
I do.
And I thought me and Dave would pick up the haunted part, but I'm super excited you got some of this.
I have some. So I have been polling all of my fellow realtors, and in the Quad Cities we're pretty flush. So we've got like 998 members of our board of realtors.
Holy
I believe.
smokes.
Oh yeah. So I'm sure you probably. How many realtors do you know?
None.
None. Well, you do now, my friend.
Okay.
How many realtors do you know, Matt Nicky?
I know 4.
4.
Yes.
Who's your favorite?
You, of course.
Wonderful. Is it because I'm your wife's sister?
It's because you're on the podcast right now.
Oh, nice. Okay.
It has nothing to do with family relations.
Okay. Anyway, so my very first off, I am not a haunted house fan. Let me put that out there.
Like the Halloween haunted houses?
Halloween haunted houses,
Scary movie type
horror
stuff.
movies.
Yeah.
I can't do that. I'm riddled with anxiety throughout the entire movie process, so they are just not pleasing to me because I feel so exhausted.
So if you
at the end of
hear
the movie.
a weird noise in your house, you're turning on all the lights?
All of the lights, and I'm alerting the dogs, and I don't allow my husband, much to his chagrin, to watch any sort of paranormal programming on the television in our home.
Oh, you don't want to invite that in?
I don't want to invite that in. I am Catholic, and we do have crucifixes over every door in our home. But I'm also kind of, who is more metaphysical than Jesus, right? So I've got evil eyes, and I've got salt around the doors and things like that. It's just generally we like to keep a good vibe, and I don't like to mess with things that are scary or spirit riddled or that nature.
Which is something you bring up now, and I didn't even consider it until we're talking about it. Good spirits. I'm sure there's plenty of haunted house stories where, not necessarily you got the doors slamming and the spooky noises, but, maybe just some casual ghost encounters.
I have 2 stories of the.
Excellent.
I came loaded.
Yeah, I got one of those too.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Let's start. We always start with a little out and about. So we're going to start with Dave on this one.
Yes.
Dave, have you been going anywhere lately?
Went to Delua,
Okay, I've heard of it.
which is like a Mexican fusion restaurant slash breakfast spot. They do breakfast like
I've heard people that have gone there have gone back, so I assume it's pretty decent.
probably.
Okay.
The old lady liked the burrito she got. She
Okay.
thought it was delicious because she is usually like a chicken and rice lady, and I'm like, well, try this burrito because they didn't have enchiladas. So I like kind of directed her, and she ended up liking it. I got the chimichanga, and I think I'm spoiled because Los Amigos in Cumberland Square, they have the best chimichangas, like hands down in the Quad Cities. So I don't know why when I go to other places I try to get a chimichanga because I'm always disappointed.
You have hired expectations.
Yeah.
And
I should have just got like fajitas or something, something you can't mess up. But I mean, other than that, it was good, and they seem to have tequila flights.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I noticed it when we were on the way out, and the old lady's like, "Oh man, next time you're driving."
Next time we're driving. Hey, you got to compromise, you know.
Right. So I'd say I'd try it again, but not do the chimichanga.
Yeah. All right, Krisha, if we got somebody from out of town coming into town, maybe looking to move to the area, maybe like an engineer working for John Deere or Kone or something like that, what do you like about the Quad Cities?
Well, I'm a big fan of multiple things in the Quad Cities, but having lived in Melbourne, Florida for the last 6 months, coming home.
So maybe some things you miss.
Let's go with things I miss. So last night, first off, not the snow. I'm not missing the snow. Not enjoying that one bit. My sister and I went to Rudy's Tacos.
Oh yes.
And I had enchiladas, and they were superb, as usual. I did not enjoy a margarita, but my sister did. She liked it. So, I feel like people that have lived in the Quad Cities, once you leave the Quad Cities, there is a certain list of like things you have to eat when you return.
Oh, for sure. Hungry Hobo.
Hungry Hobo at number 11 is on my radar for today. I had Rudy's last night, obviously. I will be eating a Harris pizza with a Gold Rush at some point in time. And I will have to have a scoop of Whitey's ice cream. So I think I really hit all of the food groups with that, I think. Did I build the food pyramid with those?
I think the ideal day in the Quad Cities is Hungry Hobo for lunch, and then Harris Pizza for dinner, and a scoop of Whitey's
Or
ice
I
cream.
don't know, you can intermix Harris with Happy Joe's.
Happy Joe. Oh, you know what? You're right about that.
I don't know. I disagree. Slightly.
Okay.
Hey, that's what the podcast's all
The
about.
crust at Harris Pizza is delicious. It is like a malty sweet. It's got the corn flour on the bottom. It's like if pizza and cornbread had like a love child, kind of.
Yeah, but there's plenty of pizza out there for everyone. I mean, you got your sluggers. You got me and the wife had our wedding catered by St. G's, and I mean, there's a lot of good
Frank's.
pizza. Frank's, yeah, a lot
Frank's
of good
is
pizza.
bomb. I will say
Tony's
that.
is a Chicago style pizza in the area.
Yeah.
They're kind of moving on up. They just moved from a teeny tiny spot uptown Moline to downtown Moline in a huge place.
Wow. So they moved up to the upside.
Up to the downside.
To the downside. Oh,
But in a good way.
breakfast. What about, what I've been thinking about? And they're so easy to make. Breakfast sandwiches from Red Band.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
The egg and sausage and cheese on a ciabatta roll, and you get it, and it's flaming in this molten aluminum foil wrap.
Are you a sausage or a chorizo girl?
It depends on what I have to do that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't want to have to search for a bathroom.
Well, and
That's
breath.
that is the way I am.
It is the way. Yeah. Depends on what your afternoon activities are.
Sausage.
So I can't think of anything I've done in town, but me and the wife went to Peoria not too long ago for the boys' hockey tournament. Oh, you know what? This was just a game, not a tournament. But she has been really all about this website, and you might like this, Dave, Atlas Obscura.
Oh, yes. I've come across that a couple of times.
Yeah, it's got a ton of bomb places to go see. So we were in Peoria. We went and saw this big muffler lady. If you've heard of the Muffler Man, they call her Vanna in town.
Is it a sculpture?
It's like a 20-foot fiberglass statue.
Oh, nice.
And she's got clothes that they can take on and off. And I'm not sure the clothes were on when I went there, but if they got to clean it or something, I think she's wearing a bikini underneath, maybe.
Like if the weather or something gets all dingy.
Yeah. And then we went through this like Great View Road, and it was up this huge like bluff, and you could see the river on one side. There was like $1 million houses on the other. There was this huge castle, had these big copper dragons out front. So they were like the old 74 bridge, all fucking greened out. But it was just a cool drive, and we've used that website quite a few times and found some real gems on the road. Me and the wife were talking about she put Abernathy's on it, and we're talking about putting some of the other things around the Quad Cities on there.
Is the Blue Ribbon Lounge, is there a broadcasting location on there?
Absolutely not.
You should get fans driving by all the time.
You should
Honking.
have fans.
Honking.
Yeah.
Only come in if the open sign's on.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, well, that's like the out and about section.
Mystic LL Treasures.
Mystic LL Treasures. A couple of listeners of the podcast, they drive around, live in an RV.
Yeah, this is a new thing for them.
Yeah. And they do a bunch of rock stuff. They like collect and cut and sell rocks and gems and minerals.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of black tourmaline from them, and I'll send you both home with a piece.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
black tourmaline is really good for absorbing negative energies, and I've always had one in my truck ever since. Well, I got my first real card reading, and it was very powerful. And she gave it to me for free. I tipped $20 because I felt like the experience was worth that. But I have ever since given a few pieces out. And I think it's really important to just kind of have, something watching your back.
I carry crystals in my bra regularly. Seriously. As an empath, I feel like that's kind of important.
Yeah, I think crystals are super cool. And you know what? I need to be a little bit more diligent about cleaning mine. But
Or do you charge them?
I don't do anything. And I need to do something.
Oh, do the things.
Yeah, you got a full moon, put them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the old lady does that with all hers.
Mm-hmm.
When she used to work at some more negative restaurants, she'd always carry some in her apron.
Have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm of the opinion that even if it's a placebo effect, if it is working, then I think it's cool,
Right.
So yeah, a big shout out to Lee and Lacey from there. We got a bunch of good episodes coming up. We're talking about creepypastas soon, the Vatican, things like that.
Yeah. It should be good. I like to play kind of loose because you never know if someone's coming in from out of town who knows how to sell haunted houses.
Yeah, maybe I'll rip that out. I don't know. Who knows?
All right.
So yeah, that's if you got a shout out to somebody, let us know. Post it on the Blue Ribbon Lounge Facebook page. Post it on the Blue Ribbon Lounge Facebook page, or blueribbonlounge.com. Check out Abernathy's. They got stickers for sale.
Yeah.
You know what would be really great as far as like some co-branding would go? Because they're such an eclectic and diverse group of people that like to come in and patronize the Abernathy's
In a
right?
good way.
Yeah. Stop patronizing
patrons.
me. Yeah.
Okay. Because they're such an eclectic group, it may be you may have a whole untapped market of cool, interesting stories and other amazing guest stars to come and talk about things for your podcast.
Yeah, we're talking about, I am talking about going to maybe some local conventions and maybe having a hot mic out for people to talk at.
Yeah.
I just got to make sure I can drag Davey out of his dungeon of a house.
Oh, do it, Davey.
Yeah. When it warms up.
Yeah, you know what? No,
When
you're
the
not
convention starts, try it out. Try it once, see how it goes.
You never know. Yeah, that's what I always say. You never know until you try it.
wrong. And that's all of the business.
Yes.
Now let's get into the meat and potatoes. Have a little dinner.
Nice.
So there are a few things that I had checked out on this was from anywhere from disclosure laws to stigmatized properties.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you if that was going to be my opener.
Yeah, so those are some things. Do we want to go straight into laws or maybe hit some stories first?
I got one fact that I saw from realtor.com or realtor. How do you say it?
Realtor.
Realtor.com. Out of the survey they did of so many people, 32% said they would buy a haunted house, 33 said maybe, and 35 said no. So that's like 60, over half of the population would arguably buy a haunted house.
Yeah.
Well, you definitely have to be. First off, for every house there is, and we have so many that come and go on the market, and a lot of sellers, I don't know if no one's going to buy this house. And we always like to say somebody will buy it.
Yeah.
Because the old Brazilian saying that every pot has a lid is true when it comes to homes. And it really just depends on what you're looking for. I personally, and I've bought 2 personal homes, am still of the state of mind where I will ask the realtor and say, hey, don't laugh at me. Most of my coworkers know how I am anyway. But I will say, hey, here's the thing. Has there ever been any supernatural activity? Can you ask your client? And the thing with a stigmatized property, which is something that you said, Iowa and Illinois, for stigmatized properties, we do not have to disclose.
Okay, and now here's a question. Do you have to disclose if they ask?
You can, but and it depends on what kind of stigma is associated with it.
And some of the stigmas that I had seen was mostly like murder-suicide stuff.
Yes.
But also things like paranormal activity, and also even like a nuisance, public nuisance.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So a story that I had heard was the house that was on Breaking Bad. There's a scene in the movie or in the TV show where he throws a pizza onto the roof.
Yes, I've heard this story too.
Yeah, and so the people who live there now, they have fans that come and throw pizzas onto their roof. And so much so in that they've had to get the police involved. They've put up I believe they've put up a steel fence, like a rebar fence.
Not like a no pizza sign.
Yeah. And even the director of Breaking Bad has come out and said, please don't harass these people. Drive by if you want, but don't throw pizzas and stuff on
Can
there.
you imagine really being such a fan of something? And I mean, fandom can supersede a lot of different things. But can you imagine going to someone as an adult, right? As a cognitive, functional adult, going to someone else's residence and literally, so you paid for the pizza.
And then,
I mean, hypothetically, right?
Yeah.
And then you're throwing money away on somebody else's home.
And potentially, getting arrested, trespassing, destruction of property, maybe.
Well,
Vandalism?
Yeah, vandalism for sure.
But you got to do it for the Insta. You do it for the snaps.
Do it for the snaps.
I'm too old for that.
I have a story that kind of goes into what you're talking about, and it's the Ackley House, which is located at one.
Don't tell everybody; they'll go there gawking.
It's on the internet.
Okay.
It's on one Levada Place in Nyack, New York, and it's famous because there was a trial, Stambovsky versus Ackley, and it was AKA the Ghostbuster ruling, and the original owner, Helen Ackley, has all these stories of moving in and like her husband seeing disembodied moccasins walking down the hallway.
Whoa.
And there was a ghost that would shake her daughter's bed in the morning to get her up for school. And except on spring break, before she'd go to bed, she'd be like, I get to sleep in this week. And so they wouldn't bother her. And she has another story where she was painting the living room, and this like colonial guy walked in, And she's like, do you like the color of the ceiling? And he like nodded and smiled and like disappeared.
Whoa.
And she's been in Reader's Digest. The house is part of like a walking ghost tour of this town. And in early 1990s, she was getting up there in age. Her daughter had moved out, and she wanted to move to Florida because she didn't want to deal with the winters. And so this guy, I don't remember his first name, but Chermbovsky from like New York, came into town, saw the house. It's like an 8-bedroom, whatever, 3 floors. And he's like, that's cool. I want to buy it. And they sign the contracts. He makes the down payment. And then when he's checking the house out, the neighbor comes by and he's like, oh, hey, you're buying this haunted house? And the guy's like, what? Yeah. And so then he takes it to court because he doesn't like, his wife's pregnant and he doesn't want her to feel uneasy alone in the house. So he goes to court to get it out of the contract. And in New York, they have a thing called caveat emptor. Does that sound familiar?
No, but do tell.
It's basically buyer beware.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's as is, pretty much you inspect the house. If you deem it worthy to buy, you buy it. And so the court was like, hey, you said you were going to buy it. You signed the contract. And so then he appealed, and it went up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court actually ruled that since Helen Ackley was in Reader's Digest and it was on all these tours and she's been in the paper, that in court she could not legally say that it wasn't haunted because it's already been
documented
that it was. Yeah, so that was it's the first ever like legally haunted house that's been ruled by in the court system. And so he got out of his contract and then sued, but only ended up getting half of his deposit back.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And some realtors that were talking about it on different podcasts, they said that kind of stuff is really hard to get out of.
Oh, it's extremely hard to get out of because it's implied, especially if you're working with realtors on both sides, but also as a consumer. And I'm fresh out of taking law and ethics update. So thank you, George Gomez from Gomez May. There is something that is called due diligence, and you're expected as an operating licensed real estate professional that one of your duties as an agent is to your client. You must do your due diligence to keep their best interests in mind. And then there's also, that doesn't let a consumer or a client bypass any sort of responsibility and kind of say, well, I had no idea my agent took all this, because as someone who is purchasing, possibly multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of property, you have a certain responsibility as a consumer to also do your due diligence.
Yeah, even if you're working, not with a real estate agent, you don't buy a toaster off Amazon without checking the reviews.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Yeah.
You gotta look into things, especially something as important as a house. And it's other stigma type things are flood zones.
Let's not say stigmatized when it comes to flood zones. I think there's a certain amount.
Well, you know what? This is just what I heard.
Oh, okay.
But I'm super ready for you to jump in about stigmatized properties.
A stigmatized property could, where it can be an urban legend or it can be factual that is controversial to, and it's really subjective, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess maybe in a way, like, I know a lot of people that probably do think flood zone homes are stigmatized, and the reason being is because the only thing that you're certain about when it comes to flood insurance is that the price will always go up.
Yeah.
So maybe that is terrifying in its own aspect.
And maybe there's another term, but it's like things that can come from the location or the house itself that affects the value of the home.
The value of it, right. And there are so many laws now, which hopefully, are licensed real estate professionals in the Quad Cities are upholding that protect things of that nature.
Yeah, I guess they may fall under the umbrella more so of disclosure.
Yeah, and that's something else. So if you have bought or sold a home, are you a homeowner? No. Okay. When it's your time, I will help you. But generally speaking, in most markets, now they're not in Florida, which blew my mind, because when we say, hey, here's a seller's disclosure, generally speaking, it is about conditions and physical sort of defects or, that are known.
Mold.
Basement flooding,
termites.
Is your roof bad?
Yeah.
It doesn't say anywhere, that your lights will switch on and off, or I guess maybe that could be electrical.
Right.
But it doesn't say, there's not. It's more of a structural and physical defect kind of thing.
And there's only a few states that have laws about disclosing some of these stigma type properties, and I didn't go too deep into them, so it may just be more like murders. I think California is somewhere between 3 and 5 years you have to give that information out, but like Alaska has some, California, Maine, Ohio, South Dakota, Vermont, and West Virginia all have some sort of law on the books to where you have to disclose some of these weird
like
happenings.
an act of violence.
Act of violence, yeah. Drug.
That is
cooking.
becoming more prevalent, especially because it's a health and safety concern at that point in time.
Right. So would it be like if there was a police report filed at that address? Would that be something you would think you would have to disclose?
No, you wouldn't.
And I even read that there was some places you have to disclose like large debt, people that have large debt, and this might have been before cell phones were popular, because you may potentially get a bunch of collectors calling you.
Oh yeah, I could see that. And you can occasionally still have debt collectors show up. I knew that was a thing in 2008 after our first housing bubble, when people were doing subprime mortgages and they would have 2 and 3 different mortgages on the property. You would have physical people come and actually enter your property to either reclaim it or harass you.
Because there was still a lien on the house.
Because there was still a lien on the house. Now, I am not a lawyer, so always double check with your state and local laws.
And this is not a professional podcast. What we talk here, even with you being a
realtor,
you don't know all the laws in every state.
No, and always
double
anywhere. Check. And I mean, the internet is such a vast whole galaxy of information, so always check that kind of stuff out.
Yeah, and there is a website that you can check. For $12, you can search any house for diedinhouse.com.
I've used that before.
Oh, really?
I have. Yeah, it's legit.
And that's if people have dyed their hair and got it on the carpet. Like there's a big stain. Stay away from there.
DIED.
Oh, okay. All right. Wonderful. Thank you.
And I heard from this guy, movememark.com, shout out for the research. He was talking about things like if your house is near a cemetery or an old battlefield or even an Indian burial ground, as a super cliche.
Yeah.
If the age of the house is over 100 years old, you can assume that people have died in it, and there was a period of time where people would have the wake within their house as well.
True.
Yeah. That's why funeral flowers are a thing. Side note, which weddings should not be associated with funerals, but I guess maybe they are. That is why wedding bouquets are a thing. Because back in when men and women were first joined in holy matrimony, bathing was like an obscure, very rare occasion. So wedding bouquets were first brought around so that your spouse couldn't smell you.
Okay.
And that's why funeral flowers are a thing, and why these big elaborate floral arrangements are a thing, is because most people would keep your loved one's body in your home for many days.
Yeah, for the wake.
Yeah.
And so you wouldn't want it to smell.
Cool.
Awesome.
The more you know.
So getting into the stories, I saw, and it was so, and it may have been because I was searching things. I was searching up haunted houses.
In
and
the
stuff.
rabbit hole.
Yeah.
You were in the hole.
But got on TikTok, found this GBTV. That's GEEBEE TV. And I believe you can find it on YouTube and Twitter, probably Instagram as well. But they had bought for like $1,000 this huge mansion, and they start remodeling it, and they find like a closet that's walled up, and there's like a bag. They tear down the wall. They're remodeling the whole place because it's trash. It's $1,000 mansion, you know. They tear down these walls. They find a bag hanging on a hook. Inside that bag is a Holy Bible with all sorts of like birth certificates, pages torn out. They go into the attic. They find like an old suitcase, a bunch of boxes, and it all has like a bunch of weird stuff. If you want to go down a crazy rabbit hole, and I don't know if I buy into it 100%, but like the things look real. There's dust all over everything.
Well, if it's on the internet, it must be true.
But if nothing else, watching these videos is like a horror movie,
yeah,
you know, like a Paranormal Activity type thing. But it was so crazy. But I highly suggest you check that rabbit hole out. Maybe not you, Krisha, but
Oh, I will. Yeah. So no, I'll definitely do it. I'll just be scared afterwards.
so let's hear some of your polls or maybe some of your experiences.
Okay, so I obviously my personal experiences have been throughout our Metro Quad cities, and I'm sure a lot of them. Everyone knows about the Clint murder house.
No.
Clint. Is he the doctor?
He is the chiropractor who murdered his wife.
Whoa.
It's on Royal Oaks Drive in Davenport. Everyone's heard that.
That's
right?
funny.
Not me.
One of my mom's friends, when I was younger, she would always be like, he was my chiropractor.
Yeah.
And she thought it was funny because he'd always be like, oh, you and your husband should come out on my boat.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
Because he chopped up his wife and then took her out on the Mississippi and threw her body in there.
Yeah, boats and hoes do not go well with that guy.
No.
So just keep that in mind. Anyway, for those that are listening that are not local, check out the James Clint murder phenomena. And it was really big. Actually, DNA research came, like one of the very first DNA cases was from that, because he dismembered his wife before he dumped her in the Mississippi River, and so that's how they confirmed that the torso was hers. So it's really cool. Davenport, it was one of the front runners.
It's on the map for a lot of things.
For that.
For two things about chiropractic now.
Oh, right.
For those who don't know, the Quad Cities is the birthplace of chiropraxy.
Chiropraxy?
Chiropractics?
Chiropractic.
Yes.
Just
Proctors.
Proctors.
And
yes.
gambles.
Yeah. First chiropractic clinic and first chiropractor murder.
Yeah.
Here, yeah, wow. And the plot thickens.
Is that Palmer, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I have asked, and that home has been on the market numerous times. And when you had mentioned someone renovating a home and finding these things when you went down the rabbit hole, that is when it has been said that you will stir up a lot of activity, because if there is anybody that's staying there, if there are any sort of residual spirits, they get agitated because they are not receptive to change.
Right.
I have asked everybody if that house is haunted, and I have gotten a resounding no, that the Jim Clint murder house is not haunted. And I want it to be haunted so bad. I don't know why, but it's not. So that was kind of disappointing, but very interesting story as far as that goes. There are lots of little things, and the Quad Cities, because we are an older town, there was some shady stuff that. Are you allowed to cuss on a podcast?
Yeah. This
Okay.
podcast, yes.
Okay, there are a lot of shady shit that people did to some of the Native Americans that were here.
Oh, I believe it. I didn't
Initially.
consider that.
Yeah, so there have been some things. In fact, there is, and I'm keeping all addresses kind of private, especially some of the ones that are more residential that people still have and are living in. So, but there is a home that is over not too far by Black Hawk State Park.
Okay.
That was featured on Ghost Hunters.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
And they had it was a maleficent force that was living there. And it's because the developers at the time, when this house was built new in the 70s and 80s, had unearthed a lot of Native American artifacts. But because, money rules in society, they just continued to plow through everything.
Jeez.
And it was, their small children were terrorized. They had been victims of physical attacks.
Yeah.
And it was it was scary.
Wow.
And I can believe that because Steve,
Yeah.
Lyme disease Steve,
A former podcast
Guest star?
guest.
Yeah.
Nice.
his family built their house in LeClaire, and when they were doing the foundation, they found multiple Indian artifacts that they actually kept and put on their mantle.
Well, and see, again, this may be one of those instances where you had mentioned, Matt, that maybe it was a good spirit. Maybe by showing those kind of items honor was a way where they didn't. Did he have any activity in his home?
I don't think so. Not that I remember. Just a lot of
Steve,
house parties.
if you're listening, give us a call.
Give us a
Right. Call in with the answer.
call in and let us know, because inquiring minds need to know. So anyway, there are some really well publicized haunted houses in the Quad Cities, and a lot of them are more situated closer down by the river. There are some municipal buildings that are that way, and they're pretty much the knowledge is readily available for you, I guess. I am going to talk about just some of my own personal experiences as far as haunted residential houses go. So, does anybody have any questions thus far?
No, you said municipal buildings. Davenport Courthouse, I think, is a haunted one.
Mm-hmm.
And a bunch of hauntings, I believe, on the Rock Island Arsenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. 'Cause speaking about the Native Americans and all that, that's why that fort was built there to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah. To oppress the brown man. Yes, that was right. Mm-hmm.
White people ain't got a good track record.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really don't. I'm sorry.
I read this anecdote. Is that how you say that?
Yeah.
Anecdote?
That there was a couple of doctors that actually dug up Chief Blackhawk. And
Doctors?
yeah,
What are
and
you guys
then
doing?
boiled him to get his bones because they wanted to take him around on display, like a kind of like a freak show kind of thing.
Oh.
Until the other people found out about it, and they're like, hey, no, please bury that guy back.
Wow,
That's
that
crazy.
is bad juju forever. I bet they always have holes in their socks.
Yeah.
That would be
Or they died early.
They died really early. The Rock Island Arsenal, actually at the Officers Club, which is where I worked, which was, I believe I was 25 years old. It was
year ago.
underground. 1 year ago. It was underground, and it was kind of close to quarters one. It was in the same building that the dining hall is in. And so we went and visited down there with my son Julian recently when we went and did the tour, and I told him, this is where Mom worked, and it was haunted. And there are still a lot of spirits. There's a lot of activity on the Rock Island Arsenal, actually, just because of the the earth absorbs all of that energy, and it's kind of silly to think that when something catastrophic like that happens, as far as death, war, that energy just kind of dissipates.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was super haunted. Anyway, my 3 stories that I have to share with you are a house that's on College Avenue in Davenport, in around 10th and College. There is a location that's over here in Rock Island by the Tri-Cities Jewish Center.
Okay.
And there is also a location that's over here in Moline. So I tried to tap all 3.
3 of the 4.
3 of the 4.
Boroughs.
So 3 of the 4 boroughs of the Quad Cities. When it comes to selling a house that's haunted, we talked about disclosure laws. You don't have to disclose them in the state of Iowa and the state of Illinois. If you know something we always like to say is cover your ass, obviously. So CYA and disclose everything you know, because you don't want to get caught in a lawsuit and go to realtor jail from not saying if you found out some information. And honestly, it's just best practice because, your word is your reputation when it comes to real estate, because everybody knows a realtor, except for Dave. He does now. Okay. One. So the house, and I was showing it. This is something that happened to me. I was showing a house in College Avenue, and it was this beautiful kind of Victorian. It had a turret, which is kind of the big walk-around stairwell on one side, and the layout was really weird. And, College Avenue in Davenport is beautiful in its own way.
Was it on that big hill?
It was on the big hill, and, it's got the brick road, and you can still look over brick and roads. See. Oh, I love it. They sound so beautiful.
I hate them.
I love
They're
it.
Terrible.
You can see the river a little bit, and this one had a widow's walk outside at the very top on the outside, and we walked in, and it was vacant. Vacant homes amplify smells.
Really?
They do.
Because there's not a lot of movement.
There's nothing in there, and essentially they're locked up, right? Yeah. The windows are closed, doors aren't getting opened. And so I walked in, and there were spider webs everywhere. And, for me, that's a scary thing because, it's so close to the river that these spiders are hanging out there looking like they were eating steak for dinner. They're huge.
Healthy.
So we bypassed that, and we're walking around. And, it's this beautiful. It still had a lot of the same characteristics that it had, so it kept its charm. Architecturally, they had added up some additional walls, but for the most part, you still had the wonderful parlor area. You had the beautiful mantle and the stone facade in front of the fireplace, and it was great. I was with myself, obviously, and there were 3 clients that were in the party that was looking at this home. And so we walked up, and, you kind of get that feeling that something's not right. And you kind of feel like somebody's kind of watching you a little bit. When we walked up to the second level where all the bedrooms were, and it looked like at some point, because there had been locks on the doors, I wouldn't have been surprised at some point in time, because of the proximity to the river, that may have been a boarding house at one time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Especially with the big galley kitchen that was downstairs. You might think that. Anyway,
it'd be interesting to see these old homes and wonder what else could have been done there. People often ran businesses and things out of their houses and things like that. I think that'd be interesting for looking at these old homes.
And a lot of this, just for those that are interested, a lot of this information can be found if you feel like going through and down this rabbit hole. Information is free for the most part. Go online, go to the Scott County Assessor site. Research and see who owned it. It does give all your parties' names up to a certain extent to about the 80s. But if you have any questions and you really want to know, go to the Special Collections Department at the Davenport Public Library, the one on Main Street in particular. It's down in the basement. It's got a lot of local history.
Oh, that's pretty
cool. So
it's
a really good resource to use, especially if you want to do your own due diligence to find out if anybody died in your house. I always like to cross-reference previous owners with obituaries. So search a name and see if you can find an obit. Yeah, really. So we had gone upstairs into the top of this Victorian house, and I had never seen a client be so terrified before. And it's really hard to kind of diffuse that because, if you're like me and you're a baby, you're panicking also. And I could kind of feel the same thing that she felt. And it kind of made the hair on the back of your neck stand up. And you kind of felt like you were being watched. My client stumbled off down. It was a big turning staircase. She stumbled down the first 2 stairs, and she said, "Somebody just pushed me."
Damn.
And she was by herself.
Yeah.
And so she ran out of the house. I was stupid and forgot in our Bluetooth lock boxes, it comes with a bottom that holds your key. I always like to keep the key in there because you put it in your pocket, it's going to fall out, or you're going to lose it. And so I had to go back in that house to get the key. And I was terrified. But, just the smell and the energy in there was really weird. And so I called the other agent and said, "Hey, just so you know, I wanted you to keep this on your radar that we might have something going on here.
This house is fucking haunted."
And he said, "You're the third person that said this to me." And so it was a really terrifying experience. And you want to acknowledge your client's reaction. I mean, looking for a house, sometimes it's awful. I showed one client 35 houses over the course of 2 years. And if she wouldn't have been my friend's mom, I would have fired her.
Yeah.
But you want to be supportive, but you also don't want to have any sort of negative, press per se.
Yeah.
Right.
Go around and be like, oh, I showed this one house and it was awful.
Yeah. I don't know why you'd want to see so many houses. I go to a house. When I was looking for my house, I went to one. I don't like this. I don't like this. I like this. I like this. The next one is a little bit different. I like this. I like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. And you kind of funnel it down, But
Some people have realistic expectations.
And then some people have that idea in their head. I want this kind of house, and I'm looking exactly for that house.
I'm a settler.
Show me one with a grand staircase and a marble fireplace.
for
Yeah.
$20,000.
Oh,
Right.
yeah. Some people are also like, I don't want to say toxically positive, but we know that Uncle Matt here
What the fuck are you
has.
talking about?
He is super positive and enthusiastic.
I'm cutting this part out.
and will always kind of say, "Oh well, yeah." Like, look at this amazing room. Oh yeah, we can knock down that wall. You can fix that. So he's
Back to the hauntings, Krisha. You got two more.
okay. So in dealing with that, I learned that it's best to acknowledge your client's fears. The other instance that we had was this beautiful brick ranch over here in Rock Island, a very close proximity to the Tri-City Jewish Center. And it had been on the market for quite some time. This is something that I heard from somebody else. And they had gone and showed, and they had gone to open houses and had realtor opens, and there was awful smells. And, we live in the Quad Cities. It could be anything.
Dog food.
It could be...
Yes.
Yeah, it is across the river from...
Purina.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
get it, okay? There could be... It's a vacant house, so, a squirrel can get in the attic. That's a big one.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we live in the Midwest. Mice are a thing.
Right. So they had kept smelling a weird smell, and the lights would flicker on and off sometimes. It was an older house. It was built in 52, so it could have been a variety of different things.
Right.
At one point, some kids had gotten in there, and this was in the later 90s, and kind of vandalized a little bit, wrote some stuff on the walls in spray paint, that kind of stuff.
Doug was here.
So we had kind of just thought, or my friend had explained that everyone in his group had kind of just thought, this has a great opportunity. This has just got to be something that's occurring, just either from tyrant youth or some rogue wildlife.
Yeah. And I mean, who knows? Homeless people getting in there eating, leaving their food, something like that.
Yeah, it could have been anything. This had continued to happen over like 6 months, and no one would buy this house. And the people that finally did were like, oh, great, we're going to renovate it. We're going to do all these kind of things. It's going to be great. The smell never went away. Nobody ever found out what the smell was.
Man.
And they had done almost a complete renovation. And so they had come to find that the previous owners of this house were just really staunch, how do I want to say this?
Hoarders?
Anti-Semitics.
Oh.
Okay. And had really, at one point in time, had terrorized some of the
And they
Jewish
live
people.
next to the Jewish place?
Not next to, but close
Well, yeah,
proximity,
yeah.
remember? And so a lot of people think that maybe there was something placed upon that house.
Oh.
Yeah.
Isn't there words for Jewish?
Yeah, but
Curses?
I'm not sure.
I wonder
if
what it would be.
it's,
Good to say.
palatable.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's.
Yeah, so it was something to spite this awful man that had been living there. Nobody ever got rid of the smell. I bet it probably still smells to this day. The people again that eventually bought it kept saying that they had lights flicker on and off. They lived there for about 2 years. They came home one day and there had been some words spray painted again. They had broken in through the garage and had been spray painted around somewhere. So you kind of wonder if maybe that was a Jewish curse of some
damn.
sort.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
A curse upon your house.
Yes.
a curse upon your house. I curse you. Yeah. So that was one. And then my last one is over here in Moline. And this is a good experience, okay? This was a realtor was showing a home, and they had heard from another agent that there might be some spiritual activity there. His name was George.
The spirit?
The spirit. And the agent went to go and show this house. He was not able to get in, and so he looked around. He couldn't get the key in the deadbolt, and that happens sometimes.
Oh, my keys are terrible.
They're awful, and it's pouring rain, and his clients are going to show up. And this was not that long ago. It was pouring rain. Clients are going to get to show up, and he said, "Oh God, George, can you just let me in?" And the door had been locked. He was not able to put the key in because it would not go in the lock, but the door opened.
Jeez.
So George let him in when it was pouring
But also,
rain.
like, come on, George, make sure you're not letting any riffraff in here.
And this was such a beautiful, untouched, like mid-century. It was gorgeous, and I'm sure George is still there to this day. Yeah. So I have always contemplated reaching out, especially since the homeowners are like 3 degrees of separation away from me, and I'm sure they would probably be receptive because that story is so awesome. But I haven't yet. So if you worked with a realtor in the Bettendorf Rule and Rule office at any point in time in the last 3 years and bought a really cute bungalow in Moline, hit me up, Krisha Saldivar at rulehomes.com. Let me know how George is.
Do you think they know about George? Is that something they
100%.
would disclose?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They actually tacked on a couple extra $1,000 because you get your own free butler.
Yeah.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, that was the thing.
That's cool.
That's cool.
So I guess that's all I had. That's all I had in my knapsack for you today.
I just want to throw this in there since we were talking about haunted houses, because back in episode 7 we talked about hauntings, and I talked about the Villisca
Perfect.
Villisca axe murder house, and I kind of like brushed it off, like, you know, skeptic like. Well, fast forward in 2014, there was a paranormal investigator, Robert Lawson Jr., who him and his parents, I guess, would go to these haunted places, investigate, and the groundskeeper John Hauser met him there, and he just like kind of assessed the guy. He was like probably in his 50s. He was wearing camo pants and had a knife on his belt. But this is in Iowa, so everybody has like a knife and camo pants, and especially out in the middle of nowhere where they do a lot of hunting. So he lets him into the house because they're doing the overnight stay, and he's like, you know, kind of small talking him, and like, so what you guys gonna do? You know, how you gonna investigate? And the Robert was like, I want to give this house a piece of my mind. And John Hauser was like, all right, buddy, like,
what does that mean?
Good luck with that. And like left and like went to bed, and he woke up in the morning and his phone was like blowing up. And it turns out, kind of do it from both sides here. 1 a.m, Robert Lawson Jr., his parents were like in a different part of the house, and he was like in the kids' room, and he just started like being super aggressive, be like, show yourself, come at me, bro, what's up, like doing all that kind of shit. And he says the next thing you know, he woke up in the hospital.
Whoa.
Yeah, because his parents were in another room and they heard cries for help, and they ran in, and he had been stabbed with his knife in his chest.
Oh.
Yes, so self-inflicted? No, they don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't a jury in the world that's going to accuse a house of killing you.
Right, but he ended up recovering.
Oh,
like he went.
When you said give him a piece of his mind, I thought he was going to suicide himself. You know, blow his brains out.
Oh no! Well,
Like
he might have. They don't know, because the only thing I could find, because I guess Kindred Spirits, like this travel channel spirit thing, did a story on him, but I couldn't find it on YouTube anywhere. But when they came back to do the interview, like after he healed, and like a couple years later, probably like 2016, Johnny was like, oh, because he's just a groundskeeper and these old people actually own the place, and he's like going over there because he hears, you know, they're filming this kindred spirits. He walks into the barn and he's like, "Oh man, that's that guy." And he actually said he's like, "You!" And he's like, "What happened?" And the guy told him, he's like, I don't know. And then the guy just like broke down and was like, I didn't do it. I wasn't trying to get famous. Like, everybody thinks I'm crazy, like, and just kind of lost it. And I kind of scoured. I didn't really find too much follow up on it. I did hear one thing where, I guess in the Kindred Spirits interview, he said something about like a blue ball of light came out of the closet, and then that's when he like woke up in the hospital.
Whoa.
Yeah. But
Orbs, man, they'll get you.
Orbs, yeah. I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Hey, thanks so much for bringing those great questions and kind of coming at people with some general realtor tips.
Realtor. Yes. Yeah, realtor tips. And yes, to finish this off, my office, it used to be a mortuary.
Yes.
The owner's quarters are still upstairs. We still have a full functioning kitchen, a full bathroom.
Yeah.
They still had the tables downstairs with the big drains in the basement floor.
Oh.
It's where some of the
embalming
would take place, and it still gives you vibes. My office is in a portion of the building called the West Wing, so it was a newer addition. I'll tell you what, I don't know if it's just me knowing that it used to be a funeral home, but it still gives me the heebies being there late at night by myself.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
So a couple of things to take away from this episode is buying a house, ask the neighbors.
Ask the neighbors.
Yes.
Always bring sage.
Oh.
You know, you got to smudge the house.
Right.
I smudge the basement all the time.
Especially after I'm here. You need that.
Especially. Also, I like the smell.
Do your due diligence.
Yes. Go to the basement of the library. Do your research.
Go to the basement of the library.
And do your due diligence either way. You know, if you're looking for a haunted house and somebody promotes it to you like that, you better fucking make sure.
Right.
You better know.
Yeah. You got to have hard evidence that this place is haunted.
Yeah, you got
at least 3 murders if you are truly looking for a haunted house.
Yeah, and also, you know, if you are unsure about anything and you're working with a realtor, ask. A lot of times, you know, again, it's not a necessity that you have to disclose, but we will try to find out.
Yeah. And remember, it's the start of a new year, and no matter what your housing goals are, a real estate review can be a valuable resource for anybody. Check out Krisha Saldivar at, you can email her at Krisha Saldivar at ruhlhomes.com. Say goodbye to the people, Krisha.
Thank you for having me, gentlemen.
Oh,
this
thank you so much for
This has been
coming.
a cold but awesome experience.
It's the basement. We had to turn off the furnace.
We are
so it'll be loud.
subterranean at the
Yes.
Blue Ribbon Lounge.
Deep underground.
We are deep underground.
Yeah. Make sure you have those smudging sticks, everybody, and be good to yourselves. Thanks for listening.
Yes. And remember, take the cannoli, leave the gun.
Damn, ghosts will get you, man.
Fuck
Are
yeah.
you a believer?
It's one of those things where I want to believe, and
I want to believe.
I felt weird, and I've had things, but I've never actually seen. Like,
Yeah.
I want that proof, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm open-minded.